the presence of false confessions makes it much more difficult in compensation, because the exoneree is always going to be faced with, well, they confess, so why should we pay them? We didn't do anything wrong. They confessed, and yeah, maybe it was a false confession, and we look at it now and say, oh, okay, maybe some of the interrogation tactics were poor or wrong, but back then, we didn't know all this stuff. I mean, that's kind of the argument that they can make, and or they'll throw out, well, now they've perjured themselves, right? Because they falsely confessed, or they took a plea agreement, or, anything like that. But now, when the Beatrice Six were exonerated, we did not have a compensation statute in Nebraska. So that was important to get something in place, because when it happened, no one thought that could happen here. And then it was important to make sure that they were compensated. And now it's 2012, almost 2013, and they were pardoned in 2009, January 2009. And still, most have not seen a penny.
In JoAnn's case, JoAnn and James Dean's case, the fascinating thing about the way that the compensation law was written in Nebraska is that this idea of false confessions was sort of thrown in there as oh, by the way, if your testimony causes the conviction of yourself or another person, you can't get compensated. So ironically, they were put into the position that showing that they really did believe that they had committed this crime, that they were literally persuaded that their memory was faulty, was integral in them securing compensation. Because in fact, that means that they didn't commit perjury when they got up and said that they believed that they had engaged in this crime. So it's kind of a bizarre situation where you're trying to get compensated for a crime that you now know you didn't do. At the time you believed that you had done, or at least that there's a possibility that you had done, but that you have to make people understand that you really believed that at the time when you said that, in order to get compensation for not doing it. I mean, it's so ironic, but that is really the unique role that this idea of persuaded false confessions has played in compensation, at least in Nebraska.
So would the other type of false confession make it much harder to get compensation?
It would if you knowingly perjured yourself. On the other hand, it also throws people like the county attorney into a suspect case, because if they suborned perjury from a witness, and if they didn't really believe that they did it, then they're also in a case in which they have violated the law. So if you didn't believe that you did it and you got up and talked about the fact that you confessed, even though it was for reasons that may have been pure, may have been, I want to do this so that I can clear it up. I think I can probably clear it up later on. If you do that in a sworn statement, you've committed perjury, which is another sort of angle. One of the things that I think the crafters of compensation laws have done is they've tried to wrangle this angle of perjury to say that people don't deserve compensation even when they falsely confessed, which again is ridiculous, because it's really the people who elicited that confession who should be at fault and should be to blame for that, not the individuals who confessed despite knowing otherwise.
Me and James are the last two of the original 5 that filed the suits that are fighting for compensation, and we're the only ones that actually had to go to trial for it. And to sit there and to reface everybody that thought they knew so much. And there were so many times that James and I both wanted to look at Cersei when he was on the stand and just call him a straight-out liar. Or want to say, you knew better and you still did this. Because there were so many times in Cersei's testimony, which was the supposed lead investigator on this, that he didn't even make reports. Nothing was documented. Well, and then the few documents they did find, the dates, that had to be a misprint. That had to be a technical error. No, it's because you screwed up. face it. And there were so many times I had to catch myself for not wanting to say, I wanted to blurt out in court of, you screwed up, face it, admit it. You're sitting on the stand lying. You're actually perjuring you're the perjurer, and I had to keep my composure and not say anything. But being back facing the ones that put me away, you can never replace that feeling of, I don't hate anybody, because hate's something that will eat you alive. Bitterness will eat you alive. I've had several people ask me why I'm not bitter about this whole case. I can't be. I'm still very upbeat, and that shocks a lot of people. Well, you went through what you went through, you're not bitter. The bitterness will kill me.